Welcome back, baseball fans. The 1972-75 Carryover League all-season look. Back on the Tuesday series, looking at spreadsheets and stats on Baseball Reference. Card looks Thursdays. We have gotten the teams comported. We saw this last week to the proper kind of a roster, at least let's call it that, to get into the off season, and that means that everybody has the proper number of guys they want to keep. Well, they have to have the 12 guys carrying on, first of all. 6 guys in 72, 4 in 73, and 2 in 74. That is uniform throughout the league. And then each team has made some trades and moved players around to identify 1, 2, 3, 4 guys they want to keep, valued here at 10,000. 2 guys you put on waivers valued at 100 units, and then 1 guy put on retirement. So you get this number here, 40202. And then, of course, this is how you calculate the entire league. 32 times 40202 is 1286464. We have gotten to this point. We have gotten that through the trades, which we saw last week. A bunch of trades in the last 3 weeks. Blockbusters. More trades can still happen, but we were just comporting to the proper number of keepers, waivers, retires. We have a separate sheet which has all the carry-on guys, and that's what tonight's video will focus on. More to that soon. We have the list of the keepers sorted by team alphabetically. All the guys they want to keep, the 4 guys per team. I've already done some analysis here where I've vacated a year for a player if A, he does not have a Strat-O-Matic card based on didn't play that year because he was hurt or retired or didn't play enough or got sent down to the minors, or the card's not very good. So I'm only going to eliminate cards that are awful or don't exist. So I have vacated in the years of 72, 73, and 74. I haven't quite gotten to 75 yet to vacate some players. We have a look here at our waiver pool. Our waiver pool, we have our 64 guys right here. There they are. All 64. Of course, there's definitely going to be a card in 72. You have to have a card in year 1. And I vacated the spots where a guy doesn't play in Strat in 73 and in 74. And you notice, as a player gets a year old or a year removed from going on waivers, of course, you're going to see less of these guys and less. Haven't done 75 yet. But you see how you start with a flood of 64. Then the guys who also have a card in waivers the following year and the year after that, it gets smaller and smaller. And of course, the retired players are pretty much the same thing. I actually just write in a year that a card exists. So the assumption is all 64 of these guys are done. However, we see that no, some of these guys, and you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys in 72. Pretty much similar, somewhere between 10 and 12 guys each of these years. We're put in retirement because they were really bad in 72, apparently, or for whatever reason, but the cards still exist. So we know we have that. We had a nice little summary of the entire 640 card lot, which is the 384 carry-on guys in green. We have the 128 keeper guys in blue. This is 4 columns of 160 is 640. And our 64 waves and 64 retires in a nice handy sheet. Tonight, what we want to do is we're going to focus tonight on looking at the carry-ons, and we're going to just go through a quarter of the league alphabetically. And then the analysis tonight is that we're going to look at all these first 8 teams. Hopefully we'll get through 8, time permitting. And we want to identify if there are any guys that are presently on a team, a carry-on, who has an opportunity to get better in one of these years and might be upgraded to that card, which would cost the team a draft pick, but could be very well worth it if the player is significantly better in one of these other 4 years. So here are the 12. Column A is the player name. You'll notice there's a number next to the pitcher indicating where he was in the rotation. Steve Stone was a 4-starter. Jim Willoughby 2, Reggie Cleveland 1. All for Arizona. You see there's a section of 6 guys with 72 here. 01 is just which card within that year. And then a section of 4 guys in 73. 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. And 2 guys in 74. In these columns is where I would highlight information for a different year. That's why you don't see anything here. These players are in their 72 seasons, so that column is blank, and you've got an option for 73, 4, and 5. Same thing here. These 4 guys are 73, therefore this is blank. You could go back a year. You can do that. Go retro a year. If you want. It's very rare because it means you could have had that card a year sooner in 72 and didn't take it, or 74 and 75. And same thing down here. So, and then what I would do is, after analyzing, and I've already done the analysis, we're just going to kind of go through this. I'm going to highlight an area in here of a player that I think, instead of using a draft pick, improve one of the guys you have instead of drafting a new guy. And in the case of Arizona, there was nothing that looked better than what they have. 2 ways of looking at that. 1, they set the 12 guys up perfectly, or B, it doesn't matter that much, depending on how you look at it. I will say Steve Stone, 72, is clearly his best year here. Ed Herman's got an all-star year for the White Sox, but it's not much better than a 72 year. A couple of these guys are 72 is their last year, Davis and Fried. Max Phillips is a defensive player. Willoughby's best year is 72, as is Bainey's best year, and Breeden is 73. And Reggie Cleveland's lowest ERA is in that year. Dave May has a lot of power in 75, but he hits 373. Jeff Zahn arrives in LA, is dominant in 74. And Bill Plummer, Bill Plummer. Well, his best year, if you want to keep track of that sort of thing, is definitely 1974. He hits over 200. So, Arizona, nothing to look at here. Let's move on. I can just page down to the next team. And remember, we're going to just go through the 3 players that have an improvement. Beginning with Rico Carty. So we'll go plug in Rico Carty here and see what we're looking at. Why 75 looks so appealing. So Carty had the magnificent, let's not forget about old 69 and 70. These years he put together. Insane years, okay? Missed a year. We have this 72 card with a 780 OPS. Most of it's against left-handed pitching. But if you go down a little bit, in 1975, he's with Cleveland now. But our guy, it's 882 OPS. A 308 card, 882 OPS with the Tribe. This guy moves around, Rico Carty. So, and again, do the Atlanta Braves need even more offense within, or do they trade Rico Carty to a team starved for offense? Something to consider. Just because he's played for Atlanta and Texas and the Cubs and Oakland and Cleveland doesn't mean he's beholden to any of those. Expansion team, if I'm an expansion team, I'd go get him. All right, Necro. So the discussion is, how much better is he in 74 than 72? Phil Necro, we think there's a little bit of improvement here. Between 72 and 74. Let's look at the numbers. Here we go. All right, 72 is here and 74 is here. Led the league in complete games. Was a 20-game winner. The ERA is down 0.7 from 306 to 238 pitching in that little ballpark. 302 innings, just 249 hits. It is a 111 whip. Actually a small bit higher than what it presently is. Probably gives up fewer home runs. He does. 19 home runs and 300 innings. So he, little more walks, a lot fewer home runs, and less hits. So it's a decent bump, but do you want to use a draft pick to do that? Ralph Garr, 72 to 74. Boy, Ralph Garr. He has a batting title here to consider. So Garr has a fantastic 72. Had a fantastic 71. Has a fantastic 72, but his OPS is under 800. And in 74, he's got the batting title, 12 MVP votes, All-Star, 886 OPS. I'm thinking, you know, you might want to do that. Let the league in triples, 17. Because if you don't, you're only going to get 2 years out of this card. At least you can get 3 years out of it. You could have made the argument you should have taken him last year, but they took Tom House and Buzz Capra last year, and rightly so. They had a lot of impact on this Atlanta team. And of course, guys like Davey Johnson and Darrell Evans are already locked into their monster years. Let's go down to Baltimore. They made some deals in the offseason. Actually, it's just Jim Palmer, the guy to look at here. And we're really kind of splitting hairs on the Cy Young winner. So when it's such a sideways move, it's like, what's the point? He's already awesome. What I really liked about this 73 card, I don't know if it would be considered maybe his. He does get the Cy Young in 73. He doesn't give up home runs to left-handed batters. As a matter of fact, he only gave up 16 homers that year. But in 75, he lowers the whip to 103 with a 2.09 ERA and wins 23 games. And I gotta scroll over here somehow to get the. Oh, he does get the Cy Young there. Yeah, so you've got two different Cy Youngs. So, you know, but yeah, I guess it's just eyeballing the card and whatever you got your eye looks, you know, you go with that one. A couple other things here. Baylor Moore they got in the offseason in a trade in getting Ken Singleton as well from the Expos. His best year is 72. Cuellar's is 72. Pappas had that great year with the Cubs that year. Singleton's 73 Expo card is fantastic. And of course, the rest of these Orioles are locked into their best years. Orioles didn't quite make it to the league championship, and they would not until 1979. But they have a really good team together. In this era between 1972 and 1978, they've got some nice performances. Maybe they can get back after making these all-season moves. The Red Sox. Well, I didn't find anybody there that looks significantly better. Abernathy, 72. The Seelbach and Anderson cards are only 72. Griffin doesn't get any better. He's just a 1 second baseman. That's all you really need. Fisk's best year is 72. Tiant's is 72. Yaz doesn't matter too much now. Harper's best year in Boston is 73, and as is Bill Lee's. I thought Dwight Evans would have gotten better in 75. It's okay. Same as 74, really. Plus, don't forget, in 75, you're getting Freddie Lynn and maybe Jim Rice. Rick Miller really falls apart in 75. So not much new to report for the Red Sox. They'll just stick with these cards, we believe. Next team, the Expos. A lot of deals in the offseason. Mickey Scott is an intriguing pitcher. Had a short sample card in 72 that Strat made. You never know what you're going to get when you get a short sample card. Because even if the stats look good, that might make the card look worse than it should be. So he only pitched 23 innings in 72 with a 121 whip, and this card is okay. But in 75, he's actually finally gets a decent taste of baseball with 68 innings and a 112 whip for the Angels. Notorious Angel team, good with pitchers. So that Mickey Scott card is one of those you're going to have to eyeball up and see if it's actually better, because that would be a 4-year extension, a 4-year contract to have a lefty in the bullpen. The Expos notoriously didn't have lefties, and stealing this guy from the Orioles and the Angels would be a nice get for the Expos, part of that Dave McNally trade. Leroy Stanton also, they got him in the Singleton trade as well as a Tolson player. The other thing about the Expos, they have so much draft money. I'll take a peek at that momentarily. They could make some more deals and start buying more players. So 72, this is Stanton at 688. Good arm, good range, a little bit of speed. 74 and 75, he's much steadier. His big year is in 77 with Seattle, and his only really good year. But 74 and 75, these are decent years. He's got some power, got some base stealing ability, great defense, and his OPS is over 730, 760. So either one of those Stanton years would be better. They got Bob Reynolds from Baltimore. They're going to have Dave McNally in one of 3 good years. So they're going to have 3 decent years out of Dave McNally instead of what the Expos got out of him traditionally. So I mentioned about the money. Let's go revisit this for a moment. I'll get back. So we talked about how trades are made, that every team has 5 units tokens, which is like a move in the draft. And if you need a balancer for a trade, like say you're making a 1-for-1 deal and there's a gap in the talent between the 2 players, one of the teams adds a token to the deal. And so you report a +1 or a -1 corresponding. Now, if you do it through the whole league, each trade manipulations are done here, so they balance out. 32 times 5 teams is 160, and there's 160 at the end of the computation. But here are the Expos in this row here, and they're sitting now. They've doubled the number of tokens they had at the start of this process, and I have never had a team in double digits in tokens. They have 10. They picked up tokens for the Rusty Staub move and the Ken Singleton move. They have other tokens. We can look at the carousel and see really quick where the Expos got all this money from. Let's see. All right, they got 1 token for Rusty Staub. They got a token in moving a waived player. Acquiring a waived player in this move. So they, for another team. They got a token in the Singleton deal. They got a token in the deal that they sent Rusty Staub to the Mets, and the Mets sent lifetime Met Ed Kranepool there because they couldn't keep him. And then the Expos turned around and said, well, we don't want him either. So they sent him to the Mets-loving Toronto team for another token, as Don Clennon is waived. They have 1 more in here? I thought they had 1 more. And that's it. Anyway, let's get back to the carry-on list. So they've got a lot of money. They could go use that money and bump Mickey Scott up, bump Leroy Stanton up, then they're down to 8 tokens. And they could still draft the guys they would be drafting, Anyhow, let's get back to the analysis here. So we did Scott and Leroy Stanton. We know Jorgensen and Dale Murray are in their best years. Steve Rogers has an incredible rookie year. Bob Bailey's in a monster year. Expos are looking pretty good. Next team are the Angels. Interesting card here, Dave LaRoche. Longtime Lob, bounced around baseball. Had, I think, a couple stints with the Angels. He started there, then he got back there in 1980, I think. So he was there in 70. He returns in 77 after going to Minnesota, the Cubs, Cleveland. We have his 72 Twins card in here with a 116 whip. 75, his ERA is 219, but the whip's a 143. It's probably not even worth it to lower the ERA because, frankly, 76 and 77, he's an all-star. Actually, 76 with Cleveland might be his best year in this part of the timeline. While we're looking at Dave, let's go to the end of his career. So I think he's got some nice stuff at the end. 81 Yankees. This is the lob year when he was with New York, and he threw the lob to Gorman Thomas. You can see that on YouTube, I think. Got 25 MVP votes for the 78 Angels. Anyway, that's your little Dave LaRoche synopsis. Borgman, Cecil Upshaw, moderate improvement. Don Baylor is a guy we wanted to focus on because we sent him to the Angels much sooner than he originally did. We skipped his Oakland stop, and Baltimore bailed on him much sooner. Nice career for the Groove, Don Baylor. So you see, this 72 Baltimore card has been traded, and Baltimore forfeited the 4 years. They kind of bailed. They bailed on him anyway when he was 26. Here they bailed on him when he's 23. He goes to Oakland for that 1 year, then he goes to the Angels in 77. So the Angels have him now with this Baltimore card. But if you look at 75, he gets 20 MVP votes, 849 OPS, best year in Baltimore, and then in Oakland he's not so much. And then, of course, in 79 he's the most valuable player. But that 75 card might be something that the Angels might want to move into. The rest of this, Tanana and Hassler are in their best years, as is Scheinblum and Valentine. Rudy Meoli doesn't really matter too much. He's the same kind of guy year in and year out. Bill Singer has his best year in 73, so he's getting a little bit older. Long in the tooth there. Moving on to the Cubs. We got the Cubs and the White Sox, and then we'll call it for the evening. We know Billy Williams has his incredible 1972 card. Hickman had an incredible MVP kind of performance for the Cubs a year ago, team MVP. But Rick Russell in 73 is highlighted, and it's just because he simply can pitch on 3 days rest. If that is a thing. If that's something the Cubs want to push him into. They have plenty of right-handed starters. They got Fergie Jenkins and Bert Hooton, for Pete's sakes, but we got immediately at 23 years old, he stepped in, did a great job. 10-8, 293, and 18 starts, .120 whip. But in 73, he can do it in 237 innings, .129 whip. Then from there, he doesn't really have another great year until 77 is his best year in Chicago as a 20-game winner and an All-Star, and got Cy Young votes. We're still a couple years away from 77. You know, that we can't pick that card until the 2026 season. You're keeping track of that sort of thing. That's still 2 years to the future. So, but the 73 card with an ERA of 3 could be picked. So we feel confident Santos 75 is his best year. Cardinal is pretty consistent with great years all throughout. Hooton 72, then he becomes a trade target of the Dodgers. We have Fan Zones and Hundley's best card. Ray Burst has a good 73, then he struggles in 4 and 5. Unser's more of a full-time player in 73, part-time player in 4 and 5. We know Madlock. We should actually highlight this. We'll do that right now, because we have Madlock's 74 card in the league. And yeah, he does win the batting title. You hate to improve a 74 to a 75 if you don't have the money to do it, because it's just 1 year out. If it was 72 or something. But here you go. Batting average, batting champion. The slugging doesn't go up and pretty much just more singles. It looks like, right? 8 more doubles, and then he only has, my goodness, 14 homers and triples in both years. Stolen bases about the same. Walks and strikeouts about the same. Really weird. Yeah, the 313 card we're presently using. Here it is. He was third in Rookie of the Year votes in 74. That's the card we have. We could bump it up just to give him a batting title, but I had the same conundrum with Jeff Burroughs, where I felt the year before he won the MVP was better than the year he won the MVP. And that happens sometimes in the sport. But yeah. Yeah, so Matlack could get bumped up to a batting title if we want to do that. All right, now let's go across town, look at the White Sox, and we'll call it for the evening. Forster's lowest ERA is 72. Aparicio is getting along in tooth, so we'll stick with his final great year. We know Allen's an MVP. Carlos may as well be an MVP, or he has the same sort of history as Allen that year. We looked at Bonson, and he really doesn't have any good, particularly, amazing years. He's just an ordinary guy. Lemon's best and only year, 72. Here's a guy, Bucky Dent. We looked at this, and we have Aparicio at short, and really Dent was defense for George Orta with his 73 card. So he hits 274 and 264, and he has an all-star appearance for the White Sox. It's interesting. While we have Aparicio, we got to be careful of, having two shortstops in the same team really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So while you still have Aparicio, you might as well just hold on to Dent with where he is. Offensively, he increases his average by 20-some points in 74. We could highlight that one as well, because we'll see this in the future. But what we really need him to do is maybe get some starts at second base and put George Orta as a designated hitter. That would make more sense. If we really want to put Aparicio on the bench, though, I don't think we should. He has this final good year in 72. Buddy Bradford, this is very interesting because it's about splits. Buddy Bradford. We have a 73 card in the league. Now you're going to look at this and be thinking this is a slam dunk. We have a 73 card in the league hitting 238, 726. And in 74, he's hitting 333, 414, 925. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's a slam dunk. Hang on for a second. Just hang on here. We're going to have to go splits. We're going to have to go 73 and 74 splits on you. So we go 73 splits for Bradford. So against lefties, you like lefties better than righties. He didn't do that. It was just the opposite. He hit 203, 619 against lefties. And that's why his stats are pretty bad. But look at against righties. He's an 801 OPS against right-handed pitchers. 465 slugging. And that's what we like. He's got homers of 1.5 and 1.6. So we'll sacrifice against lefties because you don't face as many lefties. So it depends on how much utilization you want out of this guy. But we kind of like this guy. So if you were to then, going back to the splits, if you wanted to go a year later with Buddy, just to raise his batting average 100 points, we'll take a look at how you utilize him. He hits 125 versus right-handed pitching. This is horrible. You've eliminated him facing right-handed pitchers altogether. And so, yeah, he crushes lefties, but normally the thing about Strat is they don't make guys look like hideous monsters when the stats are so small. So the 403 doesn't look like 403. It looks like a nice 330 hitter maybe, but you don't really get to see this 1109 OPS against lefties with that particular card. And again, it's just against lefties. So that's where you got to look at the cards really closely and see, do you want Buddy Bradford to play a lot with the card you have, or do you want to go to this statistical card where stats are really much better, but you're only going to use them against lefties, and you doesn't make any sense to play him against right-handed pitching whatsoever. So now you got to find an outfielder against righties. You already got rid of Walt Williams, so you've got Carlos May, Ken Henderson, and Bradford in your outfield as it stands. So that's the consideration for Bradford. Muser's 73 is his best year, and of course Orta and Henderson best years in 74 for the White Sox, and 75 it could be Bucky Dent, and also it's going to be Rich Gossage. Goose Gossage will be their first round pick, we think. And so that's it tonight. Stopping right there. You've gone a fourth of the way through it. We're going to pick this up next week and go 8 teams for the next 4 weeks and look at these carry-on guys for all teams and see if there is internal improvement in the carry-on players. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.